morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the known world, and welcome back to A Crown Between Two Roses. I am Countess Beatrix.
And I am Countess Lilya. We would first of all like to thank Magnus for suggesting that we invite the Crowns of the Known World to come and have a chat with us and the populace of Lochac. And we'd also like to thank their majesties who are joining us today. So before we continue on, we obviously start all of our interviews and chats with the acknowledgement of the First Nation. So just one moment, please, while we continue with this. Good nobles, we come here today in the spirit of fellowship, the deepening of our skills, sharing of our knowledge, and the shared interest in the search to find truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Countess Lilya bint Azir, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we gather. We recognize their continuing connection to land and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to the elders of other communities that may join us here today. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
Sorry
having me.
about the technical difficulties at the start, but we're getting there. So that's good.
So today, for those that don't know, we are interviewing King Bela and Queen Nerissa from the Outlands, and we're very excited. We have met a few members of your populace and have been gracious with their hospitality towards us. So we're super excited to have you on our show today. So firstly, whereabouts is the Outlands located?
So the Outlands is about 3/4 of the state of Wyoming.
In the United States.
Yeah, we're in the United States, sorry, North America. 3/4 of the state of Wyoming, all of Colorado, all of New Mexico, the little part of Texas that sits under New Mexico, and the panhandle of Nebraska that butts up against Wyoming and Colorado.
So quite a few states in there.
Yeah, so we're kind of narrow, but we're from north to south. It's about a 21 hour drive from our northernmost group to our southernmost group.
Wow, okay.
So do you know where the Outlands got its name?
We were originally a principality of Adenbelt, and the way it's been told to me, whether this is true or not, was that Adenbelt, which is the state of Arizona, also incorporated the state of Utah and Colorado and New Mexico, and they basically referred to all of that area, all of us unwashed heathens, as the Outlands. So that's kind of, from my understanding, how it got started, and we've kind of run with it. So whether it's true or not, we some of us live up to that. Yeah.
That's what we go with.
It kind of conjures up like Mad Max, like feels for Australians. You're out in the bad
much.
That's actually how it feels driving through the Outlands, is kind of Mad Maxy sometimes.
Yes.
Right.
With
Perfect.
tumbleweeds included. So the tumbleweeds kind of, I know we went to Australia War a couple of years ago, and my son and I drove through like this horrible ice storm and tumbleweeds, and when we arrived, the king and queen at the time pulled this giant tumbleweed out of my car, and they're like, wow, looks like you had quite a journey. I'm like, yeah, driving through the Outlands is crazy.
Do you have road trains in the Outlands?
Do we have road what?
Road trains?
Road trains.
Trains?
Yeah,
Right.
we have,
So they're trucks with lots of trailers on them.
like, we have massive trucks that travel out our, like, across our desert in Australia. That basically is this huge truck that has like about 8 to 10 like loads behind it, and they're called road trains because they start and they just can't stop until they actually get to the end. So you like, if you hit one of them, you just pull over and let them pass. Like, it's just not like feasible.
That's not really common here. We have a lot of trucks, but they normally haul one trailer behind them. Occasionally they'll haul two. And every once in a while, you'll see one with 3, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah, not very often.
So
Yeah. Wow.
two's
I
about the
have
limit.
passed a 6 trailer one, and you pull over right over the edge of the road and you stop your car because there's no way that you want to drive past it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound safe at all.
No.
So back to the SEA question. Sorry for diverting us. Sorry. Does your kingdom have traditions that you are very proud of? Because each kingdom we've asked have certain traditions or like awards that it is personal to the king and queen at the time. So
we have quite a few traditions that are, I don't know if they're necessarily uniquely Outlands, but there are things that I'm pretty proud of, and like the first being we have an unbroken line of the outgoing king crowning the incoming king. Whether there's any kind of theater involving the king dying or whatever, they make sure that they always crown the new guy first before they actually croak. So that's something that's really important to our kingdom. I know other kingdoms are like that, but that's something that's really important to us as a kingdom and as a culture. There's also, during our coronations, something that we do that I think is fairly unique to us and that I like a lot is when the outgoing king releases the queen, he takes the crown from her and he hands it to a lady of the rose to hold. But when the crown comes off of her head, all of the ladies of the rose in attendance will remove their coronets.
Oh, wow.
And when the king takes his crown off and the incoming king is swearing, then everybody else takes their coronets off. And then when the new king is crowned, then people will put them back on. And a lot of the ladies of the rose will leave theirs off until the new queen is crowned. And I just think that's a really cool thing that happens here that I don't see a lot of other places.
it's kind of like a visual sign of respect to the incoming queens. Quite beautiful. So.
We also have a really neat tradition, the dirt box. What is that called?
Oh, we have a box of sacred earth that has dirt from the first SEA event, and then also dirt from all of our crown tournaments. Mm-hmm. There's also ashes of some of our past crowns that have passed away that have been added to that box. And then at crown tournament, the morning of the tournament before the fighting starts, we take some of that dirt out and we basically consecrate that ground and have a really nice speech about our, traditions and our history. And then at the end of the day, the prince and the king will gather some more dirt from that field to add to the box.
Wow.
I think that's the
That's
coolest
awesome.
thing.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I like that one. I think it's neat.
The queens also have one that I think is cool. That's just for our queens. We have a very strong history of drummers and Middle Eastern dancers in our kingdom, and a lot of the queens of the past have been Middle Eastern dancers, and so it's kind of a tradition in the Outlands when the queen is dancing, she won't wear the crown. She leaves it on the throne or whatever, so that way it's kind of if she's wearing the crown, then other people don't feel like they can be dancing, or if she gets too close to the drummers, then everyone's standing up and stopping playing, and so it just be kind of started out of courtesy to the other dancers and the other drummers, and it's kind of a space and a nod of the queen saying that we're all one in this environment, and I just think that's a really cool thing. We had
Very
one
cool.
queen that didn't listen to that very well, and it didn't go over well for her.
There's always one. There's always one. So if your populace travels, or we travel to your populace, like your kingdom, what are you known for across the known world? Obviously the dancing and the half laws. So
So I think hands down, like hospitality is our number one. I mean, Outlands hospitality is a huge thing to our populace. We take it very seriously. We do our utmost to really go above and beyond and to make sure that people are comfortable when they visit and that they're fed and that they have a nice place to stay. And we really, hospitality is bar none, like that's our thing. It's
Yeah.
Outlands hospitality.
Hospitality and shenanigans is a close second. So, I mean, we do like fun and we do like pulling pranks on our friends and our neighbors. And so much so that now when other kingdoms try to do shenanigans, they will often yell Outlands and run away, which is really hilarious when you have a lot of Swedes yelling Outlands and running away.
Nobody thinks you're actually from the Outlands, but it's awesome. It's fun.
Oh dear. So do you have a premier event that you have in your kingdom that, like, if we were going to travel there, that we should visit?
It would probably be, right now, it would probably be Battlemore, which we have it's over the 4th of July weekend, typically. And it's at about 9,200 feet elevation in the mountains. It's at a beautiful site. So you're in a nice meadow between the mountains, and there's a nice stream that runs through it. And there's a pond there. It's plenty of trees, the mountain view. It's just a beautiful, beautiful site. And we have all kinds of A&S classes and archery and equestrian. And basically, if it's an activity in the SEA, it happens at Battlemore. So that would probably be the one that I would encourage people to come to.
Yeah, we even did a fishing derby last time at Battlemore. They arranged period fishing kits, and you could sign up. And they had, unfortunately, because of the snowpack melting, the water was very high and rushing very quickly. And so I don't think anybody even caught anything, but it was really cool. And
there were a couple of people. There weren't many, but there were like 2 people that caught fish.
Yeah, but it was neat because they put together, like I said, period fishing kits, and then they had these cool like rulers that they gave them, and then you had to send in your ruler with your fish marked on it. And so Battlemore is a really great event to try a lot of different things. The site just lends to such a variety of activities. It's really quite amazing, and its variety is a lot of fun.
Awesome. So earlier, before we joined in, we were having a bit of a discussion about yourselves and that you are not a couple. So how did you end up fighting for Her Majesty?
So I've been friends with her husband for a really, really, really long time. He's a very awesome person, and he moved out of kingdom, traveled, ended up in the mid-realm and met Her Majesty, and they ended up getting married, and then he brought her home to the Outlands. And she is an awesome person as well, and actually was the head of my royal household for my last reign previously, before this. And then my personal life changed. I got a divorce and suddenly found myself in need of a consort, and I really liked fighting in Crown. So she was actually pretty much the first person I thought of. And so we had a conversation, and luckily she let me fight for her. And I kind of tricked her, told her that most likely I wouldn't win the first one. And then I did. So things happen.
Yeah. It's all in or nothing.
Pretty much.
So how many reigns is this for you?
This is my 7th.
Wow.
And this is your first, is that correct?
Yes.
The 2 very different perspectives of reigning then.
Yeah. This reign is actually makes me, I'm the first person in my kingdom to reign this many times. So as of this reign, last reign I tied Duke Arton, who's the first Duke of the Outlands, at 6. And so yeah, we have the person that's done it the most with the first time as
It's
forever
reign.
COVID crown.
and a COVID reign on top of everything.
Yeah.
So how long have you been on the thrones?
We were crowned last November.
Yeah, so coming up on a year.
So do you have heirs?
No.
No.
We actually had to COVID hit and things started happening, and we had to cancel our crown tournament like a day. Yeah, it was like 24 hours before the event was supposed to happen. We had to cancel.
Wow.
And so then we rescheduled for a new event, and then that event got canceled, and we rescheduled again, and that event got canceled. And then we were supposed to have our crown in September, and then the board of directors they finally said no events. So that event got canceled. So yeah, just us, no heirs.
And
So,
in our
I'm
kingdom,
kind of sorry.
In our kingdom, you're only heirs for 6 weeks.
2 months. It's 2 months. It's 2 months.
2
It really is. It's 2
Yeah.
months.
2 weeks of panic. Come on.
2 months is plenty. If you know what you're doing, it's plenty.
We have the same length of time between our crown tourney and coronation, so we understand. And Lil and I have both been in that boat of, oh my God, you've won? Oh my gosh. Okay, what do we do? What's next?
I got a week's leeway to throw out all of the strange ideas, like I did. He turned around to me and went, "You have a week to get all of the bad ideas out." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
all your ladies should have pearl necklaces so that you can say the king gave you a pearl necklace." Oh, and he was just like, "No." Those came out in the first week, and they went, "Okay."
Yeah, and like His Majesty said, I started in the mid realm, and there you are princess for 6 months, and then you're crowned for 6 months, and that's largely due to Penzik.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 6 to 8 weeks.
You don't need 6 months.
Was
8
pretty
weeks is plenty.
shocking. 6 to 8. 6 to 8.
It's 8 weeks. It's the second week in September, and we stepped up the second week in November. 8 weeks.
Ish.
So, so you were obviously king and queen when COVID hit. So it wasn't like you just jumped in. So did you have theater that you were planning to finalize at the end of your reign, or was it just no? We're just having an SEA reign.
So we were 2/3 of the way through our reign when COVID hit. So, I mean, we have offers out to peers that have yet to be elevated. I mean, we had all of the awards through the end of our reign. Like the scribes have already done the scrolls. I mean,
yeah, everything was like, it was smooth sailing. Like all we had to do was get to crown and get heirs, and then it was just we could relax for 2 months and let the heirs do the dirty work, right? But yeah, that didn't happen. So now we just wait, and then when we can have events again, we get to have crown
right
sometime.
away.
Well, it depends, I guess.
I'm anticipating the 1st of February is going to be all of these crown events across North America.
It's going to be interesting when it opens back up.
Yeah. So in Lochac, we've actually just cancelled our November crown, and I have somehow been nominated as steward for our last, because it's our last 12th night, and we're running a crown tourney coronation, otherwise known as Crownation. And this is the second time that this has happened in Lochac, so it's Crownation 2, Crown Harder is the kind of thing that's coming about with this. So we're not allowed to do this a third time because it's the Crownation and the second one is in the same barony as the first one. So that third time is the tradition is not allowed to happen.
Yeah, that would be bad. That doesn't sound like fun. It sounds like a fun day. It sounds like a not fun day for the person that has to plan it.
Yeah, no, I have an amazing team of people who this all happened last weekend, and within an hour I have every officer filled and ready to go. I've never had a team come together so quickly ever, including the feast team. Like, awesome, excellent, right. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, we'll do this.
When is that going to happen?
The second weekend of January. So not only is it 12th night, but it's the middle of summer that we're holding our crown tourney.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
We have areas across Lochac that are high humidity, high heat. So you try and avoid any major events in the middle of summer just to give everybody like a even playing field. But we'll see how we go.
It's like fighting on a really hot day at Pennsic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of humidity here, but we have in the summer we have a lot of heat. We are a desert kingdom, basically.
Alpine desert.
Yeah. So we get the heat, but not the humidity.
Yeah, my home barony is in the mountains. Not very much humidity, but we get a lot of the heat. So it'll get up over 100 Fahrenheit in the middle of summer. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun.
So with the influence of COVID over your reign, I've seen that you're holding high teas. Is that correct? Online with previous kings and queens?
Yes. We were trying to think of ways that we could keep people engaged in the SCA and also teach a little bit about the history of our kingdom and some of our traditions and how they got started. And I've been a guest on a couple of other shows like this. And so I came up with the idea of her and I taking turns interviewing a past king or queen. And so we've each done one episode so far, and my second one is tomorrow. And so far it's gone really well, and it's been really well received. And we have all of them booked out through January. Yeah. So it's fun. It's kind of nerve-wracking because some of the stories that I've heard is like, should I really ask that in this format to see if it's true or not? And for me, I know a lot of the back stuff, and for Her Majesty.
And I do not know the back stuff. And so I am sometimes hesitant, like, should I ask this? Is this a trap? Or is this okay to ask? I'm not sure if this is okay, so we're just going to go with it. So it's a very different perspective because, like he said, he knows a lot of the backstory, and I'm just kind of shooting from the hip a little bit. So
when B asked me to do this, I had a similar feeling about it. I was like, you're just setting me up to ask all the inappropriate questions, right? And she was like, no.
Of course. No, me never.
So are you doing anything else online with your kingdom apart from the high teas, which I think is a fantastic idea?
So we post videos occasionally. I read some children's stories, especially right at the start of COVID. We are hosting a virtual Kingdom ANS.
This weekend?
Oh yeah, this weekend.
Yeah. We have a Kingdom Bard position that the new Bard is normally determined at Crown Tournament. And so because we're not having Crown Tournament and stuff, and that person has been in the position for over a year, so all of our champions are earned positions mostly, like our Arts and Sciences champion, our Bard, our Kingdom Archer, Royal Archer, things like that. We talked to all of those people and asked them if, gave them the opportunity to stay in their office if they want until we can have events and do things. And Unfortunately, our Wendover Bard had a little bit of life happen, and so he needs to step down. So we're having a bardic competition, a virtual bardic competition as well online, that will be decided at the virtual arts and sciences. So that's really it. We haven't done any courts, any kind of that type of thing, and honestly, I don't really I like what you guys are doing and the various shows and all of the teaching that's happening virtually. It's amazing the amount of resources that are out there for people in the SCA right now, and it's wonderful. Virtual courts are just weird for me. It goes against every fiber of my being, and so it's hard. I want to be able to look people in the eye when I'm recognizing them and giving them an award, and have that moment to tell them to their face how amazing they are. And I just don't think this format really gives you that opportunity.
Yeah, I've joined a couple of other kingdoms courts. A friend of mine was asked to join the Order of Defense, and so as a member of that order, I went to his vigil and then got surprised. Can you speak for him for the Ladies of the Rose? And I did give an award. We had pre-arranged to give an award to a member of another kingdom, and that king and queen were going to step down, and so we kind of scrambled to get the award out before, because the way our laws are written is we have to get permission from the current crown. And so I did join another court and give out a court barony. But yeah, it's just very it's hard because you can't really talk face to face with the person, and it's hard to gauge their reaction, and it's hard to, I don't know, I take a lot of the cues off of how the person's responding, and I maybe kind of change gears if I think that they're gonna get very emotional, or if I think that, you know, just depending on what the mood basically of it. So that's a very hard thing to read. When I was in these courts, it was like I was in a waiting room, and then they activated my camera, and then I was like, great, can the herald read the scroll? And then they had to mute me and then unmute the herald, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So it was just, it's very it's a hard format, and we just feel that our populace maybe it's just not what we do in the Outlands.
Yeah, it's not really our culture, it's not really our thing, and we are hesitant. We've had in the last few years, we've had a lot of growing people wanting us to live stream courts and live stream crown tournaments and things like that. And I just think that really leads to people not actually coming to events. And the SCA at its core is about people coming together and gathering and doing the things we're doing. And so I'm really hesitant to do anything that makes it easier for people to just play SCA through Facebook.
I completely understand what you're talking about. I was privileged enough to go to an in-person event last weekend for a baronial changeover, and 2 weeks before that we did have a virtual baronial changeover, and just it's the difference in atmosphere was just phenomenal. And I absolutely admire the fact that we are able to do these virtual courts, but nothing really beats that in-person game.
Well, and my thing too is like, how do we decide what we're going to give virtually, right? Do we give it to the new person who this is their very first award? Do we give it to the person who could be working towards an award for 30 years? Like, is that who we give a virtual award to? So it's more than just, you know, the atmosphere. It's also like, how do we even make that choice of what we're going to do?
I also have, so during one of my earlier reigns, there was an event in the barony of Cairgalen that was on May 1st, and it was a Mayfair event, and it was really geared towards children, and there were a lot of children activities and things. And we showed up, and they let us know that we were going to be doing a puppet court. And so we had awards to give, and I thought, okay, well, we'll do the puppet court and then we'll have real court. And they're like, no, puppet court is the only court we're doing. This is for the kids. And so we had to, like, we were kind of put on the spot, and we kind of had to, in the moment, decide, are we going to give out these awards that we plan on giving as puppets, or are we not? And we did. And it was weird. And I felt like an ass afterwards that someone got their award from me as a puppet. And so, like, that stuck with me, and that really, like, I don't want someone to leave that experience of getting an award virtually and go, well, I wish I'd have had the real thing. And so I'd much rather wait until I can see people and talk to them and hand them the scroll personally. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
So your kingdom does scrolls and has them ready for you to hand out for the award support?
We have an amazing Scribal community. So it's a kingdom office. Our kingdom scribe basically coordinates all of that. And then through the generosity of our populace, our scribes make amazingly beautiful works of art so that they are presented with a handmade scroll.
And occasionally we don't have one when we give it out, but if that happens, it's usually because we as Crown didn't let the scribe know in enough time.
Yeah.
But we also, one of the things that happens to help with those types of things is a lot of times at coronations and things like that, they'll have a scribal competition where they'll do blank scrolls. And, they'll have our names on it, and it'll be for a certain award. Like AOA, we'll get blank AOA scrolls, so then we can just at the event put the person's name in, and everything else is ready to go. And that helps a lot with, because a lot of times, like I said, we're a large geographic kingdom, and we have some groups that are kind of out of the way that the Crown doesn't always get to. Sometimes they'll go 3 to 4 years without seeing a crown. And so we do our best to, have a good idea of what we want to give when we get there. But then sometimes you get there and you see somebody just doing amazing things, and you want to recognize that. And so having those blanks from our scribes makes that stuff happen a lot easier. And everybody, it's really nice as Crown when you can give out an amazing piece of art with the award and see the look on someone's face that someone handcrafted this amazing thing for them. It's one of the best parts of the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nerve-wracking when somebody gives you like a masterpiece pelican scroll though and goes, can you sign this in the back of a tent? You're like, oh, he got it.
Yeah, I practiced my signature a lot. And someone said, that's the thing you're most stressed out over? And I said, yes, because I don't want to mess up someone's beautiful work of art by having a crazy signature. So yeah, as soon as we won, I was practicing my signature because I was so afraid I was going to ruin somebody's scroll.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally get that. So how did you both start in the SCA?
You go first.
So I was actually at work and a group of people came in. So I used to be a retail manager at a Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you have those there. It's like a traveling restaurant. It's like a restaurant people stop at when they're traveling.
Yeah.
And so it's like a country store. So it's a store with a restaurant. It's bizarre. Anyway, a group of people came in and they were all in garb. And so basically like my job was to like go out and interact with guests and make sure everybody was having a nice experience and help people if they needed directions and whatever. So basically a cruise director, and they came in garb and I was like, what are you guys doing? Looks like you're having a lot of fun. And they're like, oh, we belong to the SCA and we were having a crown tournament locally, and they explained what the crown tournament was, and they gave me the website, and I basically logged in and found my local group. And I was interested in fencing, so I'm a fencer, and kind of got in with the fencers and Pennsic was my third event, and
Wow.
met a lot of people at Pennsic, and yeah, I just decided like, so I'm an all-in kind of person. Once I decide I'm going to do something, so yeah, I went to Pennsic and I was like, this is cool, and I want to fight, and that's kind of how I got started.
So for me, I was at work. So this was 30 years ago. I was 20 years old, and I was at work, and this coworker was constantly talking about the SCA, and like any chance he got, he would bring it up in conversation. And I don't know that I ever really paid attention to what exactly he was saying, because at the time I was the manager and he was kind of under me. So like I heard him talking about it, but I didn't really pay much attention to what it was he was saying. But he joined my D&D gaming group. And then about 2 months after he joined my group, they were getting ready for Estrella War, and they were doing a big war practice. And so he went to war practice and fought, and came straight from war practice to gaming, and he had all of his armor and all of his weapons and all that stuff, and he's hauling it into the house as we're starting a game. And I'm like looking at all this stuff like, wait, what's this stuff? Tell me about this stuff. Because I have a background in combat sports. I've done boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, all that stuff, like pretty much my whole life. And so fighting is something that I've always enjoyed in all of its forms. And then he basically brought his armor and showed me, and I went, when can I try this? And the very next week he took me to the fighter practice, and they threw me in the really nasty barrel plastic, didn't fit very well armor, and said, here's this, here's the legal targets, go fight. And I've been hooked ever since.
Wow.
So what are your personas when you're not king and queen of the Outlands?
So I did a lot of late period because, like I said, I'm a fencer. I'm a master of defense. I'm a white scarf. So I did a lot of like later period English. But since we've moved to the Outlands, I have actually been doing more Norse because it's very hard to travel with late period garb. And now, like when we go to Pennsic or Great Western War or any war, we fly there. So it's very hard to fly with late period and my fencing armor and my fencing kit. And I do fight heavy at war. So, and my heavy kit and, you know, and. So I have more transitioned into a Norse persona since I moved to the Outlands, and that's pretty much it.
I didn't do that.
The power of the puppy.
It was a puppy for sure.
For sure. For me, I am a conquest era Magyar, which is, so for me, it's 10th century Hungarian nomadic horse tribesmen. For people that aren't familiar with what the Magyars are, they're basically the same thing as the Huns or the Mongols, just sandwiched in between them. And so for me, that was a persona that I picked because I'm only the second generation born in the United States. My grandmother and grandfather immigrated from Budapest, Hungary. And so, and actually my persona named Bela, I got from my great grandmother who didn't speak any English at all. She only ever called me Bela. That's like, she died when I was like 5, but all of my memories of her were her talking to me in Hungarian and always referring to me as Bela. And so when I found the SCA and I discovered what it was, when I started figuring what I wanted to do as a persona, there just happened to be a gentleman in my barony who was a conquest era Magyar persona, and I liked the look of what he was doing, and I was just drawn to it anyway. And then when I asked questions and found out it was my heritage, I'm like, oh, I'm in. That's it. I'm doing that. So
That is awesome.
So being not a romantic couple, but a friendship couple, right? How does your family deal with you being on the thrones? Like your close companions and, you know, like, because they're not in the center, like in the limelight.
So when Bela asked if he could fight for me, we had a lot of conversations with my husband, all the three of us, about how this would work, and the time commitment involved, and all of that. And my son is actually, I have a 13-year-old, and he's our Prince Royale, so he is part of our royal household. And my husband won my rapier champion, so my husband is my rapier champion.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was quite lovely. So it's definitely,
it's tricky balancing the time. That's one of the things that I expressed to her is, there's going to be times where we're going to have to be in, peer circles and getting ready for court and things like that, where you won't really have time to be mom or be with your family. And so when we're not in those instances, I've tried to make sure she gets a lot of time with them when we're not in court or things like that, where she can't have that time that she normally has.
Yeah. And luckily my son is older. I think it would be probably harder if he was younger. But he was 12 or 11 or whatever.
So long ago.
When we were crowned. But we talked to him about, he's been going with us to SCA stuff. So he's not, I've been in 9 years, and he didn't really start going with us to stuff until he was a little bit older. But he definitely, I've been going to peer circles for 4 or 5 years. So he understands that there are definitely times where I'm not available. And, but yeah, it's definitely a balancing act when we're at war. It's, we would like to go and have time together, and, balancing, like, I got to go back to camp and change my outfit because I got to go show up at a tournament and be fabulous. And, so it's definitely a very tricky balancing act.
A lot of support as well, by the sounds of things. So
yeah, my husband's great with my son. He's really been such an amazing partner in this journey. Even though he's not part of this partnership, he's been an amazing partner in making sure that I feel supported and I have the help that I need, and making sure that my son doesn't feel like he's being ignored, I guess.
Yeah, we absolutely couldn't be doing the job that we couldn't do the job the way it needs to be done if it wasn't for all the help that he's provided, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your proudest moment so far in the SCA? It can be while you're being queen and king, or it can be outside of the actual reign.
Go first.
For me, it is, so I have 2 former squires that have won crown tournament, one in the Outlands. He beat me in the finals. And the current crown prince of Acknowledgement is my former squire. So for me, it's seeing them achieve those goals that they've sought out to achieve, and getting to watch my first squire that won, Count Leaf, who has since passed away, but getting to watch him be king, and I got to be his king's champion, and I got to see him be that role, and I'm really looking forward to seeing His Royal Highness Zipser rule in Acknowledgement. Like, to me, that is the thing that I'm most proud of. People give me crap all the time about, being king all these many times and giving out all these awards, and that's your legacy and that's what you're known for and that kind of stuff. And I always tell everybody, my legacy is my squires and their squires and their squires. That's what I'm leaving for the game is that. And so getting to watch them do those things is amazing.
I think for me, honestly, like probably one of my proudest moments is being the first Master of Defense Queen, and getting to bring, that aspect of the game to the crown, because I'm so heavily invested in that community, and being able to represent that community with such heart, and just know that, and it's amazing to see the fencers, and it's amazing to make a white scarf, and so I think that I'm very proud to be a fencer and a Master of Defense and a white scarf in my own right, and then be able to bring that kind of recognition to the fencing field from the Queen perspective.
They're very both humble answers. Thank you very much.
So prior to us inviting you to this interviews, did you know much about Lochac?
So I have some very dear friends in Lochac from going to Pennsic several times, and Outlands Royal Camp is very near Lochac Camp, and I have dear friends from the Outlands who camp in Lochac actually, and so because of that, I've gotten to meet a lot of people from your kingdom at Pennsic, and first of all, I can listen to you guys talk all day and just be happy. Right? That is my favorite accent in the world. So anytime I'm around it, I'm content. And you add into the fact that the quality of people that I've had the opportunity to meet every time I've been there, the hospitality that has been shown to me and the kindness, it just makes me really want to, Australia and New Zealand are really high on my travel list, and I've always wanted to go there anyway. And so now that I have friends that are there, I like really want to go there in an SCA capacity as well. So yeah.
And my experience has mainly been on the fencing field at Pennsic. I've met some of your fencers and fought against some of your fencers, and so that's really been my exposure to your kingdom, is through your fencers.
So what's the wildest thing you've heard about our kingdom since you have met our populace?
The chicken salt.
Chicken salt and Vegemite. Some of the weird things that you eat. The weird for me.
Salt's amazing. I'm a big fan.
We will send you some, promise. So what keeps you playing in the SCA?
So I think that when I was first in the SCA, there were so many people that made sure I had an amazing experience, and they were really the magic makers. And honestly, what keeps me playing now is I feel like I get to be that magic maker for other people. And so honestly, that's what keeps me playing. I mean, I'm already a peer. I don't know. I think being able to be the magic maker, and not just as queen, but being a peer and being a leader in that community, and making sure that I get to make magic for other people is what keeps me playing.
For me, it's 100% the people and the relationships that I've forged over 30 years of playing this game. I'm a much different person now than when I first started in the SCA. I was 20 when I joined, and I was angry, and I didn't know much about chivalry. I love the concept of knights, but I didn't really understand what chivalry was and what it meant. And so through 30 years of playing this game and meeting people and stop. Sorry, we're being served
in the background.
Toasted marshmallow.
I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Adam. but honestly, it's the relationships and people. Like I've done combat sports, I've done competitive sports and things like that, and I've been in bowling leagues and various other types of leagues, and yeah, they're fun and they're cool activities, but you don't make lasting lifelong friendships where you can be halfway an 8-hour drive away and say, oh no, my car broke down on hauling this trailer on the way back from Penzic, and make one phone call and someone's like, okay, it's going to be 6 hours, but I'll be there to get you. Hold tight, right? And that's pretty much everybody in the SCA, right? Like the quality of people that we have across the society is amazing, and everyone is willing to give you the shirt off their back if you need it. And I've had opportunities where people have been stuck in Denver at DIA because of weather, and we've hosted them for a night so they didn't have to get a hotel or things like that. And it's just that fellowship and that camaraderie that you get in this society that you don't get anywhere else.
It is amazing, and it's such a known worldwide thing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what's your favorite story to tell around the campfire?
You gotta go first.
No,
You gotta go first. They're not PG.
They're not PG. What's my favorite story? So it's almost always a fighting story. And so I belong to a big fighting household, a big rapier household. So usually our stories start with no shit, there I was. But I think one of my favorite stories is, so we like to test ourselves in tournaments, and we like to test ourselves in melee. And so when one of our guys, specifically my husband, we're at Penzic and we're fighting in the castle, and he had to defeat 5 opponents, 5-on-1. And so my favorite story is when we're back at camp, and my husband's so excited because he defeated all these guys. But the best is the members of the house that were to the side holding other people back. No. They're like, oh no, honorable combat. We're like, no, send in more guys. And so he's like, and then this happened. And so I guess it's just like the no shit, there I was. And, the, I'm not going to fight you, Adam, because you're by yourself. And, and then my husband like destroying this whole group of people, and, everybody, it's the fighting stories, honestly, are the ones that I love the most.
Mine is not really PG. It's rated R, but
Have you heard any of the stories so far? Most of them are rated R.
There's very few PG.
Many years ago at an Estrella War, I was part of a household called the Huns, and at that event, we would select the new head of household. And the head of household was selected through competition. It was a fighting tournament, a combat archery tournament where the outgoing head of house was the target, and a drinking competition. And the drinking competition consisted of, we had a 36-ounce mug, and you would put 3 beers in it, and whoever could drink it the fastest won that portion. And so while we were having this competition, it kind of became well known. And so people would come watch, and then other people would want to participate just for fun. And so at one particular Estrella War, one of my squires who was in the house was participating. Another one of my squires wasn't participating in the tournament, and they had another squire friend that was hanging out with them. And they were watching, and they're younger men at the time. Well, most of them. One of them wasn't, but they were in their cups, and they were talking a lot of smack, and well, that's as fast as you can do it. That just giving people crap and stuff like that. And one of the knights of my kingdom that was there just watching, who's notorious for getting people to make bad decisions, was egging them on, basically. And so through the course of the evening, they, as a 3-person team, just made bad decision after bad decision and made bad bet after bad bet, to the point where at the end of the evening, they had to sleep in my armor tent, which smelled horrible, and also was a detention pond because my squire left it open and it rained all day. So it was water filled. So they had agreed and lost in bets that the 3 of them had to sleep in my armor tent, naked, tied together, with 1 blanket and 1 pillow. And I don't know if you guys have been to a Estrella War, but it gets really cold at night, like sometimes below freezing. And so even in my inebriated state, I started thinking, I'm like, well, this is pretty dangerous. One of them might die from hypothermia. I need to give them a suitable but embarrassing means out of this situation to teach them a lesson. And so at the beginning of this, the 3 of them had all agreed that if one of them agreed to something, they were all in. And so I went to the first squire with my amazing idea of how to get out. And that was, they could either sleep tied together naked in my detention pond, horribly stinking armor tent, or they could strip down to their belt and their boots and do a lap around the battlefield. And I had a crowd of people with us, and we went to the first squire and we propositioned him, and he went, fuck that, I'm sleeping in the tent. And the crowd was sad, and I went, it's okay, trust me, we got this. Then we went to squire number 2, and we asked him, and he was like, oh no, I'm sleeping in the tent. I'm okay, I made the bet, I'm sleeping in the tent, I don't care what happens. And people were sad, and I went, no, really, we got this. The third squire had wandered off. He was at the West Kingdom's party trying to round up more people to come and help them get out of this bet. And so I found him in the middle of the party, and this was the youngest of the squires, and he was really not known for making good decisions, but he was, he's 6'4", very cut, together young man. And I started telling him what his options were. And before I could finish, he started undressing in the middle of the party, which meant the rest of them had to do it as well. So we get him out of the party and away from the crowd and off to the side of the battlefield, and tell the other 2 poor squires the bad news. And so they all start taking turns getting undressed. The young squire's already half undressed, and he starts trotting around the field. My older squire was really not happy about it, but he realized there was no way out of it. So he stripped down, and I'm pretty sure he set a world record that night. There was just a white streak around the battlefield, and he was back before the first guy left, and before my third squire even started taking a stitch of clothing off. And so the third squire was very argumentative and didn't want to do it. And I'm like, dude, you made, like, your word is your word, right? Like, don't make bets if you're not willing to pay up. And so he finally gets undressed and starts sauntering off and makes it about 15 feet before 2 ladies on a hay bale stop him. And they have a conversation that years later I would find out about that conversation. There's a whole nother story. But so they have a little conversation for a couple of minutes, and then he wanders off. And meanwhile, the second squire gets back, and he's getting dressed, and people are giving him drinks, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And right about the time I'm like, okay, we should probably send somebody to search for him because something bad happened. He comes strolling up with 2 beers in his hand. And I'm like, how did you get the beers? And where did you get the beers? Well, on the other side of the field, the known world rapier party was happening. And he got over there and walked into the party and asked for a couple of beers, which they happily provided him. And then he came back. So, yeah. And so that tradition has been kind of morphed into victory laps. It's called a victory lap. And I have since then taken it to every major war in the society, because there's always someone willing to make a bad decision.
Yes.
And there have also been allegedly chariot races like this, allegedly. And the Outlands is allegedly 8-0 in chariot races.
When I went to Canterbury Fair, which is one of our big events, as Queen, we kind of went to the Knights meeting, which was in the middle of the day, in the middle of the battlefield on hay bales with beer and sausages, and the youngest knight was sent off for hot sauce. Okay, because they went, you're last in, you have to get like the hot sauce. And then I went to the White Scarfs meeting because they weren't an order yet, but we still encouraged the meeting so that we could like talk about the polling and so forth. And it was such a vast difference to the heavy fighters, because it was underneath a tree and there was a bottle of 20-year wine and cheese and crackers and cutlery. And I keep telling people this is the difference between the fighting communities. One people will go, we're hardy and in the sun, and the other people are like, no, we're going to do this right under the So I think your squire learned to play both fields there.
Well, I've always said if you're going to do anything, it's worth doing with style.
Yes.
So you definitely learn style points.
Well, Your Majesties, our time is unfortunately up, and it has been such a pleasure to have these conversations with you and get to know yourselves a little better and make that connection across the known world.
Maisie, by the way, has said to say hello to both of you. Her Majesty from private.
I saw Maisie had a question for me.
Yes, it says, what do winners get?
Winners get sprinkles.
Sprinkles.
Winners get sprinkles.
Be written on the next tunic that somebody makes you around the hem.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. Winners get sprinkles. That's good enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you so much for both of your time. We really do appreciate it, and it has been lovely speaking to you. Hopefully in person one day we'll get to share a drink and more chats. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you so much to everyone watching. We will be back in just under an hour with another interview of the Crown of Artemisia. So please join us then. Thank you so much, Your Majesties. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.